You need a full range of deterrent options. You don't just need nuclear weapons and a couple of tanks. You need everything in the middle. And actually, this is where Germany has a potential advantage because of the emerging defence technology industry here in Germany, which is one of its real strengths. Down in Bavaria in particular, there are a lot of companies at the Munich Security Conference presenting on this. This is something I think we can expect to see more of because they could rapidly increase German combat power and they could help give Germany the economic boost that Friedrich Merz needs to provide.
I mean, this is one of the kind of striking things about the situation now, that Germany is facing a risk of deindustrialization that is much discussed with respect to its car industry, its chemicals industry. And yet, what it needs is a bigger defence industry.
And these are skilled jobs as well. These are good jobs that would be there, which could transfer from one to another.
So this is almost like one of the thoughts that this new government is going to be confronted with is like, okay, can they kind of like flip over an industrial base that is designed for making cars that people don't necessarily want anymore to making weapons that Germany desperately needs and the rest of Europe
weapons the Russians don't want to see, right?
Yeah. But this you know, it feels like maybe this is the logical result if you're losing the nuclear protection umbrella of the United States. But that's not always the way Europe and the Germans thought that umbrella would be removed, right? I mean, the thinking was that if you never needed it, then there wouldn't be a threat. But now we're looking at there is a threat and the Americans may not be with us anymore.
Exactly. The Beach Boys School of Security Studies no longer lives. The wouldn't it be nice world that we were in yesterday isn't there. And thankfully, a lot of German politicians have woken up to that. What we've not yet seen is that realization translated into real action because the Zeitenwende of Olaf Scholz, which was supposed to reposition Germany in this way, failed across all its 5 main dimensions. Merz's government now has to deliver a real Zeitenwende, including through its commitments to allies.
That's a big task.
And actually, we have a question on that point from one of our viewers who wants to know, will Germany now take a tougher stance against Russia, try to negotiate a deal for both NATO and Ukraine?
Well, we can certainly hope Germany takes a tougher stance against Russia, and there's a lot of people around Europe who will be wanting that because Germany, frankly, has been missing in action for a good period of time in European security and defence. We heard earlier about the report from Brussels with Olaf Scholz, the wrong man in the wrong job at the wrong time, who became something of an unconstructive blocker. Merz has a chance to change that, but to do it, he has to act as well as talk. Part of that is shoring up Germany's commitment in the Baltic states, where they deployed a full brigade to Lithuania, which is in process, due to be finished by 2027. That's already stretching the Bundeswehr to its limits, though. And so the Bundeswehr has to grow across the board. But the quickest shortcut to getting all of this right is winning in Ukraine. So does Merz have the courage to actually take a winning position in Ukraine, which is something that Olaf Scholz was never willing to do?
Does he have the electoral support to take it? You know, take Germany to the next level?
Well, yeah, it's hard to understand that question, to answer that question, really, because, I mean, of course, his Conservative Party won this by a significant margin, but it's their second worst result ever, 28.65%, the current projections. Yeah. It's not a lot. They're likely to be creating a coalition either with one party that has lost a huge amount of its support, the Social Democrats, losing an election but ending up in government, or potentially with 2 parties, depending on how the coalition maths shakes up. So it's maybe just too hard to answer that question. But I would agree with what Ben said.
You've got to say, right, do what you can with what you have where you are. And that's part of leadership, and that's what we've got Merz for, isn't it?
Yeah, but we just don't know yet how strong his position is going to be, I think, and to what extent he's going to be buffeted around by events, and events in the human form of Donald Trump. You know?
Beyond his control.
And I think there's a very strong sense of that. Europe is being blown around at the moment by Trump-force gales. And Merz is about to be in the middle of that. And a lot of Europeans are looking to Germany to lead. I was in Munich as well, and there were people, you know, even British people, right, members of the British Parliament standing up and saying, when is German leadership going to come? And Merz is signalling that's what he wants to do. But the question is, when he's in a coalition with a potentially difficult partner, when he's dealing with countries around him that have potentially slightly different interests or emphasis on interests, you know, all in theory, you can say, I'm serious about this, I'm serious about it. but it's in the doing that is the test of it. And we just don't know yet, and we don't know what how difficult the circumstances are going to be for him.
Germans have voted for change, with the country's Conservatives claiming victory in the national election. With all the votes now tallied, a two-way coalition government now looks far more likely. It would bring together Friedrich Merz's Conservatives and the Social Democrats, who lost this election but still appear poised to end up in government again.
We, the CDU and CSU, the Union bloc, have won this 2025 election. Friedrich Merz is the man in the driving seat. As clear winner of this election, he's set to become German Chancellor, though he still faces the tricky task of building a coalition. His centre-right CDU-CSU bloc received the most votes by a clear margin, though at under 30%, it's not the support Merz wanted. Olaf Scholz will stay on as caretaker chancellor, but his days as Germany's leader are numbered. His SPD party achieved its worst result in a national election since the 19th century. Friends, comrades, this is a bitter election result for the Social Democratic Party. It is a defeat. The Alternative for Germany party nearly doubled its support, the strongest showing for a far-right party since the Second World War. In the post-election discussion on public TV, co-leader Alice Weidel had her eyes on the levers of power.
Our hand is outstretched to take part in the government. We will support the CDU-CSU when there are motions that we approve of, if they go in the right direction. The will of the German people is clear. They want change. They want a coalition between the AfD and the Conservatives.
Weidel predicted the Conservative bloc would not be able to form a stable government, and the AfD would in time become Germany's largest party. But Merz said his party had little in common with the AfD. You can reach out to us as much as you like. We will not pursue misguided policies. The Greens saw a small drop in support, punished as all the government parties were. Among smaller parties, the left benefited from a surge in support from younger voters. It was a campaign dominated by fears. Fears about migration and Russia, a faltering economy, and the fear that Donald Trump is changing Germany's relationship with the United States. Friedrich Merz says he has a plan for all of those issues, but first he needs to find out who will join him in government.
Well, breathing new life into the German economy will be a focal point of coalition talks after voters said it was one of their top issues. High costs and growing uncertainty have racked the country since the beginning of the war in Ukraine in 2022. Europe's largest economy has shrunk over the past 2 years and job losses are mounting. Business groups are pushing for less bureaucracy and more competitive energy and labour costs. Well, for some analysis now, DW reporter Stephen Beardsley is here in the studio with me. Stephen, so we have the votes have been tallied, forming a two-party coalition looks a little bit more likely now. Is this the news that business leaders were hoping for?
I think the news that business leaders are hoping for is that things move quickly when it comes to forming a new government. And obviously, if you're talking about a two-party coalition versus a three-party coalition, that probably from the outset looks a little bit more friendlier towards speed than, of course, a three-party coalition. So that seems to be the good news. But again, the real message is that there has to be speed and there has to be a unified vision at the end. Especially when you look at the outgoing government, that was a three-party coalition. It was very awkward from the beginning, and by the end, it was an absolute disaster. You had 3 different party leaders holding 3 different business roundtable events, each with their own focus. And even by their own admission, it was embarrassing, and there was no common vision. And so that's what business leaders want, is they want to see something move forward quickly, and they want it to be common. Because right now, the issues that Germany faces, they are not these kind of periodic weakening economy issues. It's structural. That means there has to be substantive, definite changes.
Right, so structural, I mean, we mentioned it there. There are big issues in the economy. It's sluggish, to say the least. So what will be top of the agenda for this next government that's going to eventually come in?
Again, top of the agenda is going to be that there is a unified vision. That is going to be the key thing, and the business leaders aren't left in the dark, and they know where the government is going. Even if they don't agree with it completely, they can at least set their watch to that plan. That would be a good start. Some of the things that are on the wish list, it depends on what sector we're talking about. But as you mentioned just a moment ago, high energy costs are a problem here. You have business groups that want to see the government do something about that. They want them to cap energy costs for industry, for example. It's not very easy to run a steel plant, to run a chemical plant. Ever since Russian gas became a no-go here in Germany, energy costs have risen dramatically. Another thing would be bureaucracy, regulation. There are new laws that have come into place here in Germany, and they're going to come into place in Europe that really require a lot more rule checking. They want those onerous regulations taken away. These would be some of the things. Also, labor costs. But that could also lead to an issue. When you talk about labor costs, business leaders say that's a problem. That's one of the things pushing our costs up. That's one of the things that makes it hard to invest in Germany. If you're talking, and the CDU, I should say, who has really won, they had the best result for the election, they are very much amenable to a lot of those ideas. Their obvious coalition partner is the SPD, much more labor-friendly, as opposed to the CDU, much more business-friendly. And among the issues that the SPD pushed were raising the minimum wage further and even a 4-day work week. So you're going to see a little bit of, strife in that area. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if those are the coalition talks that go ahead between the SPD and the CDU. It's not a definite thing that it's just going to skate through.
Plenty of negotiation, to say the least. Now, migration was one of the main issues during the campaign. We've seen it being talked about time and time again. But at the same time, Germany needs to attract immigrants from abroad. So whatever new government comes in is going to have to strike a balance, right? How are they going to strike a balance?
Yeah, I think this is the internal tension that's facing the CDU and that's faced them for quite some time. Not so much on the business front, but in terms of migration, just how do you take some of those voters who are very angry about it from the AfD? That's going to be a focus of theirs going into this next government. And you're exactly right. Demographically, the structure of Germany is such that the big bump in the demographics, the demographic range is now going out. It's retiring. The baby boom is. And so you have less skilled workers. That's a fact of life that we're already seeing right now come into play. It's only going to be more exacerbated in the future. So how are you going to do that? They're probably going to focus on listening to Friedrich Merz and looking at their party platform to this point. They're going to focus more on deporting criminal migrants, for example, those who have been accused or convicted of a crime. They're going to focus more on little things like smoothing out payment systems, lowering payment systems for those who are pursuing asylum, things like that, instead of trying to ward off those who are actually coming in with skills that could be useful to the country. But that's going to be a fine line to walk. It's not going to be easy. And I think that's something that we're going to see play out over the next years. Can they walk that line properly? Because there's no doubt this country has to have migrants to be able to continue this economy, to be able to see it go off.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of negotiations and talk over the next few weeks, and I'm sure you'll be keeping a great eye on it. DW reporter Stephen Beardsley, thank you.
With me is David McAllister, a member of the CDU party executive and the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Parliament. Mr. McAllister, which kind of impression will you now take to Europe, which is waiting for Germany to have a new government fast?
When I'm back in Brussels, I will tell my colleagues that CDU and CSU are the clear winner of these elections. Friedrich Merz has a mandate to form a new German government. We will approach the Social Democrats very soon, and we want to have a stable German government as quickly as possible.
Soon? What does soon mean? Because Friedrich Merz has vowed that on day one, when he becomes Chancellor, he would instantly reposition Germany as a leader, particularly taking a stance towards Donald Trump over Ukraine. How long can this process take?
Well, in these geopolitical times, we simply have no time to waste. And that's why the sooner we have a new government in office, the better. But of course, this needs to be prepared properly. We are now at the beginning of coalition negotiations. We will approach the Social Democrats. And what we have to do is, as a new government, restore confidence in Germany and also restore confidence in our democracy, because the worrying part of the last night's election is definitely
what did you say?
Somebody from Buy Nothing is taking some of our wood.
That's so great.
It's great.
Now have nearly 1/3 of the votes in Germany.
Indeed, we see that the parties at the fringes are the big winners of the night, particularly the far-right AfD party, which doubled its support to more than 20 percentage points. What lesson is there for your conservative, still Big Ten party?
Well, we need to unite the centre and we need to deliver. The challenges are enormous and we have to solve the problems. If we solve the problems Germany is facing, then the fringes, who have very simple answers to very complex questions, will lose their business case. But we have to deliver, and certainly Germany is facing enormous challenges. I like to name three. The first one is we need to make our economy competitive again, more competitive. That means a focus on how to bring Germany through these geopolitical challenging times from an economic point of view. The second one is the numbers in irregular migration have to come down drastically. They are far too high. And the third one is, as we all know, European security and defense. We will have to do more for our own security and defense in Europe. We will have to spend more, but we need to do this in an effective manner in close cooperation with our European partners and allies.
The most likely coalition partner will now be the Social Democrats of the current Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who are responsible for this very migration policy that's so criticized by the conservative CDU. How confident are you that Friedrich Merz will be able to deliver on what he vowed to be a turnaround on migration?
Well, I think a coalition with the Social Democrats is the most likely option we now have. But of course, yesterday, was a very difficult day for the Social Democrats. They were the big losers of yesterday's election. And also we need to give the Social Democrats some time to analyze and reflect what went wrong from their point of view. But one thing is clear, the Social Democrats need to understand that we need to do more for the normal German citizens. We need to tackle all the challenges these people are facing. People are concerned in Germany about the cost of living. People are concerned about the crime in our country. People are concerned about irregular migration. We need to address these issues, and we shouldn't leave these important topics to the radicals, the extremes from the far left and the far right.
Now, you mentioned time and again. Time is of the essence. What is Friedrich Merz, as a likely next Chancellor, able to do and able to negotiate over the coming weeks before Germany actually sees a government in place, particularly on that issue of defense spending and giving an answer towards Donald Trump?
Well, we are now in a transition period, and I'm pretty sure that Chancellor Scholz and the designate new Chancellor Friedrich Merz will coordinate all important decisions to be taken at a European and at an international level. One thing is clear, Germany is the largest country in the European Union, the strongest economy, and together with France and Poland we play a crucial role in Europe. And what we need is a German government which is capable of taking decisions, is capable of action at a national, at a European and at an international level. Germany, the German government, was too absent from the European debate in the last 3 years. This has to change, and Friedrich Merz has said from the first day in office he will make sure that Germany plays the role we are supposed to play as the largest member state in the European Union in close cooperation with our partners in Europe.
Final question. Will it take weeks, months? Will we see a new German government before Easter?
I can't tell you how long it will take. It depends on the end, how quickly we can agree on a coalition treaty. This will take, of course, some time, but I want to be very clear here. We don't have any time to lose, and that's why the sooner we have a new government, the sooner Friedrich Merz is the new Chancellor of Germany, definitely the better, not only for Germany, but also for Europe.
David McAllister, thank you very much.
And let's get more from DW's political correspondent Hans Brandt, who joins me here in the studio. Hans, welcome. No time to lose in forming a government. So what is the realistic estimate of how long it will take to actually form this government?
Well, everyone's talking about the possibility of forming a new government, of Friedrich Merz being sworn in as Chancellor by Easter. Easter is in mid to late April, so we're talking about 2 months. That seems to be the fastest that people can imagine this going on. There's a tradition in Germany for these kind of coalition agreements between various parties to be negotiated in a lot of detail, and that can take a lot of time. What's advantageous at this stage is that it's only 2 parties that need to negotiate with each other, rather than the 3 parties that we had in the previous government. But it can turn out to be a very detailed and very laborious process, because obviously all parties involved want to have their aims also included in these things. So Easter, if we're lucky, 2 months.
So 2 months would be fast by German standards, right? What happens in the interim? Who runs Germany in the interim?
Yes, obviously there is a provision made for this in the constitution. The current Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, will continue to be Chancellor until a new Chancellor is sworn in. A kind of lame duck Chancellor, obviously. He can't really take major decisions, but there is a government in place. The expectation is that Olaf Scholz will include Friedrich Merz in many of his negotiations and decisions. We have a precedent for this when Olaf Scholz became Chancellor, following on from Angela Merkel at the time. Merkel took him along even to major summit meetings. He was finance minister in her government at the time, so he had a kind of official role. It's a possibility that Scholz will do similar sorts of things, but obviously there is some worry, internationally especially, in that in this interim period things in Germany will become very sluggish still, and there are major things happening. There is a lot of urgency, especially around this situation in Ukraine and relationships to the new government, the Trump administration in Washington. Meetings, summit meetings, emergency meetings of the European Union are taking place within days. So, yeah, we'll have to see exactly how they do that.
You know, we heard that interview from David McAllister. He talked about the German government being absent from the European debate for far too long. So clearly Germany wants to re-engage, if we use the language that he's using. But is it going to be easy, given that it's going to be potentially a 2-party coalition, 3-party coalition, CDU, CSU plus SPD? Is it going to be easy? easy to make the decisions that need to be made at the pace at which they need to be made for effectiveness at the European level?
I think it's going to certainly be easier than it was before in the three-party coalition that we've had for the last 3 and a bit years. That coalition actually had quite an effect on European Union decisions, because sometimes the German government within itself could not decide what position to take in Europe, and that delayed a lot of processes and changed some decisions at a European level. And also, Olaf Scholz was never somebody who had a particularly good relationship to Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and that axis between France and Germany is regarded as the major driver of European policy and of the European Union. So Friedrich Merz, I think, will especially try to improve that relationship with France, with Emmanuel Macron. Also, Merz is somebody who is a lot more accessible on questions of defense, where Scholz was somewhat reticent. So decisions about increasing funds for defense, European defense policy and so on, Merz is likely to be more accessible on that.
We'll leave it there for the moment. DW political correspondent Hans Brandt, thanks so much for that. And the big losers in this election were the current Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats. The SPD had its worst result in a national election for more than a century. Scholz has admitted defeat.
Hello, this is a test.
The rainbow is a meteorological phenomenon.
Hello, this is a test.
A rainbow is a meteorological phenomenon that is caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light in water.
A rainbow is a meteorological phenomenon that is caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light in water droplets, resulting in a spectrum of light appearing in the sky.
What do you think? Mm-hmm. Put whatever you...
Hi, my name is Kaitudu.
And...
Bo, give me baby. Oh, hi, little boy. My dear love. How are you doing, small man? Let me give you some keys to eat. Here they are. One. Nice. Look. You're the best. I love you, baby. Want to sit with Dad while he works on code? I think I'm about to crash my computer.
Dostoevsky reads Hegel in Siberia and bursts into tears. Dostoevsky reads Hegel in Siberia and bursts into tears. Laslzo Foldenyi translated from the Hungarian Biodali Mulzet. The Margilis World Republic of Letters is dedicated to making literary works from around the globe available in English through translation. It brings to the English-speaking world the work of leading poets, novelists, essayists, philosophers, and playwrights from Europe, Latin America, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East to stimulate international discourse and creative exchange. English translation copyright 2020 by Biodali Mulzet copyright Foldenyi F. Laslzo, English language edition published by arrangement with Ulema International Literary Agency. Earlier versions of these essays were originally published in Hungarian. For details, see the credits page. The credits page constitutes a continuation of the copyright page. All rights reserved. This book may not be reproduced, in whole or in part, including illustrations, in any form, beyond that copying permitted by sections 107 and 108 of the U.S. copyright law and except by reviewers for the public press, without written permission from the publishers. Yale University Press books may be purchased in quantity for educational, business, or promotional use. For information, please email sales.press@yale.edu, U.S. office, or sales@yaloop.co.uk.
and will not be part of any new coalition. Scholz will, however, remain as the caretaker leader until a new government is formed. Let's get more from Annika Kloser in Berlin. She's an SPD member of the German parliament. Welcome, Annika. Germany seems to have swung to the right. You are essentially a center-left party that is going to be potentially joining a coalition that is right of center. Will your party also have to move to the right to be an effective coalition partner?
Hello and good evening. Actually, I think the results are twofold. Well, overall, we have seen that the right-wing parties have gained majorities, but looking into, for example, the state that I'm in, Berlin, we have seen the left party gaining a lot of percentage, winning 5 seats in the city. So I think what we actually see is that people have been disappointed with the government and what has been happening, and that we as Social Democrats really have to look into our results. But I think one thing is clear, we weren't able to come through with our topics that are important to us, like the redistribution of wealth in this country, that you have a better minimum wage, that the pensions are more secure, and that migration, for example, is not only a threat, but also a value to this society, that we need workers in this country and that we need to make it possible for them to really integrate.
You talk about the left party winning seats. Yes, they won seats, but they're not going to be forming the government. You are going to be potentially in the government, but only as a junior coalition partner. Where does that leave your party's agenda? How much of it will you be able to effect if you're going to be a junior coalition partner?
Well, actually, I think right now it's on Friedrich Merz and his Conservative Party to try to form a government. And I think we are a democratic party, so of course we need to talk with each other. But we as Social Democrats really have to look into this, like how much of our agenda are we going to be able to bring forward in such a coalition. And it's also the responsibility of the Conservatives to build new bridges, because I think a lot of bridges have been burned in the last few weeks by Friedrich Merz and his agenda and the topics that he presented. I think there's not much common ground between those two parties right now, so it's not a given that we're going to join this government.
But the fact remains that the SPD has had its worst ever result in more than a century, the SPD being the oldest political party in Germany. The co-leader of your party, Lars Klingbeil, was speaking earlier in the day. He said, I quote, "We will have to renew the party." How will the party renew itself?
Well, I think we will have to look into why we have lost these elections. And I think one of the main reasons is like the redistribution of wealth and higher incomes, like to raise the incomes in this country. We have not been able to push forward enough in the last government. So what we need now is to analyze in which kind of government can we do that? How is it possible? Who can lead our government and who can take positions for the Social Democratic Party? I think we need to have a change, like in person, like with our people in the first row, but also, of course, our program. We have to look into that, and also how we're going to present ourselves as a party. Obviously, we have not been successful with that in this election, so we have a lot of a lot of things on our to-do list to work on now.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Annika Kloser from the SPD, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The far-right Alternative for Germany, meanwhile, doubled its vote share. The AfD became the second largest party with 20.8%, marking a shift from the fringes to a major political force. But despite its gains, all the other main parties have ruled out working with the AfD. It is now set to be the largest opposition party. And the AfD's co-leader has hailed the party's performance and said voters want to see it become part of a new government.
We are prepared to take on responsibility. German voters have voted for political change. We have a strong majority for the AfD and the CDU. Voters want a centrist right-wing government. Now it's down to the Union, the Conservatives, whether they want to deliver that. Right now it looks like that won't happen. Friedrich Merz seems to be sticking to his attitude of blocking working together with the AfD, which we do not think is democratic. You cannot simply exclude millions of voters, and so it's down to the Union bloc to see how they deal with this.
Hey, tiny boy. Okay, tiny Bill. Let me put you here and give you this.
Hello everyone and very welcome to the channel. In this video we are going to have a look at another text-to-speech and speech-to-text. Also at the moment speech or audio. So including some of the it's all again on CPU. Text-to-speech on this current working directory, it is splitting it into batches, it is preparing the and then we can see that it out after decoding it. And there you go, you can see that now it has done the speech to text, it has transcribed that audio, and it was fairly quick, all on CPU.
These are the 5 best open source text-to-speech softwares that I've come across over the past year. This here is just a quick sample of my voice with a British accent. And this is how I actually sound. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first one is going to be Suno's Bark, and Suno's Bark came out about midway last year, and this one had a very great example in the beginning, and it caught a lot of attention from me and many others, but I'm going to go ahead and play some audio samples from it, so here's their curated example.
Hello, my name is Suno, and I like pizza. But I also have other interests such as playing tic-tac-toe.
So that's their example, and if we go ahead and generate that with a different speaker on the Hugging Face space, here is that audio sample for the same sentence.
Hello, my name is Suno, and I like pizza. But I also have other interests such as playing tic-tac-toe.
So those are a couple of audio samples from it. I think it's good, but it's not the best. It was pretty cool when it came out, but there hasn't been much updates from it because Suno seems to have been focusing a lot more on their chirp feature, which I'm not going to go over in today's video. Up next is Valley X, and this one is kind of in the same space as Bark. It's not the best, but it's also, it can be voice cloning as well. It's decent, but let's go ahead and record some audio from my mic and just give a sample of it. We're going to be testing the Valley X text-to-speech software, and this is a quick audio sample. We're going to go ahead, stop there, let's change the text here, and then we're going to go ahead and generate. So here's what WhisperX transcribed, and here's the synthesized text. So let's go ahead and listen to the output audio. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. Like and subscribe for more. So I guess it's trying to match the tone of my...
Hey guys, I wrote something new, the Edge TTS support for the real-time TTS library, and this is a new engine which does not need a GPU and supports a lot of languages, and it has some quite nice features. Let me show you. So look at this Edge test script, which you can find in the real-time TTS tests folder, and at first you can list all voices with a simple command, and then you can filter them to find a good one. So let's say you only want to see the female voices, or you want to only list the English female voices, or only the US American English female voices. You can do all this with the command line interface. You can show a detailed list if you want more information about any voice. And yes, of course, you can do some simple text-to-speech.
Hi there.
And then you can switch the voices. So let's try the Sonia voice.
Hi there. How's it going? Can you hear me all right?
This is the Michelle voice.
Reference library for high-fidelity speech model.
The model demonstrated here is the first iteration
using a simple text prompt, for example.
To improve the
controls using a simple text prompt, for example.
Iteration model trained using 10,000 hours of narrated audiobooks.
It generates high-quality
of the model.
noise.
Remember, this is only the first iteration of the model.
Of the amount of training data by a factor of 5 times.
A rainbow is a meteorological phenomenon that is caused by reflection, refraction, and
Oh, I got the meat sweats. Oh no. Little man, I love you. Come on up here, little boy. Hi, bud. Hello. How are you doing, bud? Doing well, buddy?
Okay.
Ma'am?
Hang out with him in the kitchen now.
Oh, no, he's fine.
You like this? Okay.
I'm enjoying it. He might actually enjoy hanging out in the kitchen more, though, honestly. Do you want me to help with cooking?
No, it's just making broccoli.
Sounds good. Look at this little boy smiling at his mom.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Are you eating paprika?
Paprika.
My little son.
Mm-hmm.
You're such a chunko.
Chunko, indeed.
Oh, And also, Mark, I realized I can bring the food to Hello.
Oh ho.
Easily.
No, I could do it. Because you're going to Riley, right?
I was thinking I'll just not stay with
Yeah, go for it. Because I am flowing, dude. I'm enjoying this.
Oh ho.